Well, we've talked a lot about traditional email marketing on this podcast. I want to get a powerful email strategy on your radar: launching a local newsletter. Let's be real, it's exhausting trying to navigate constant algorithm updates, navigating social media trends, and fighting for a spot on the first page of Google. With a local newsletter, you're creating for a platform that you truly own because you own your email list. Plus, you can stop worrying if search and social engines like you and instead write from the heart and build from a place of authenticity. Luckily, our guest, Michael Kauffman, is here to help. He's been able to scale his local Catskill Crew newsletter to over 40,000 subscribers and multiple six figures in revenue in less than 2 years. In this video, Michael will break down why local newsletters are so rewarding, his secrets for growing and scaling from the beginning, tips for getting creative with monetization, and how to build a profitable newsletter brand that also gives back to the community. Now, we'll be covering a lot, so if you want to just relax without having to take notes, I've got you. I've created a free launch and scale a local newsletter cheat sheet based on Michael's tips. You can grab it inside of my free travel blogger resource library, linked in the video description or via the QR code on your screen. It includes 75 plus checklist tutorials and templates, all meant to help you grow your traffic, email list, and income. Feel free to even pause this episode to go grab those resources. You back? Then let's dive in. Well, thank you, Michael, so much for taking the time to share your tips. To start, can you just share more about yourself, your business, and what led you to launch a local newsletter, especially compared to other platforms people might think about like blogs or social media?
Yeah, pumped to be here for starters. So thank you. My background, I've been building startups for about 15 years. I slipped into it in college, started a beverage company, got a call from an investor. He was like, send us a business plan. I was literally on Google, like, what is a business plan? We raised some capital. I fell in love with the idea of having an idea. And, my background is building startups, everything from beverage to technology and everything in between. And the summer of 2023, I got really burnt out. I was just, I was in love with creating things. I didn't enjoy the capital raising. I didn't enjoy the spreadsheets. I didn't enjoy the operations side of it. And so I was just like, I really need to lean into it was an existential crisis, actually. I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with my life. And I knew I wanted to build stuff. I knew I wanted to create. And I always kind of saw startups, as almost like an art form for me. Like I really loved building the brand and telling the story. And, I was like, all right, whatever I create next, it has to be a direct connection to the customer, to the consumer, to the subscriber. I had no idea what it was going to be. I knew I never wanted to raise a penny of capital. I knew that I didn't want to build something to sell. And I knew that right now, or rather right then in that moment, I needed to build something that I wanted, not another market opportunity I saw. And so I was like, well, I got no ideas. And I was driving back from Montana after a month of fly fishing. And I was like, just staring at the open road, and in those moments, I'm always like listening to podcasts at 3x speed. I'm reading every article I can. I'm almost like looking for, instead of bushwhacking, I'm like trying to find the path. And finally I was like, man, I love where I live. Like I know my bookshelves are filled with books on the Catskills. I know I live and breathe this place. I love the people. I love the history and the nature. I was like, I'm just going to do something about home. Like that's going to be kind of weird and fun. So I had the idea to start a local newsletter. I knew nothing about newsletters. I knew nothing about nothing in that moment about what I was going to do next. And I'm very brand first. So I was like, okay, well, I knew I didn't want it to be about news. I knew I didn't want this to be like another traditional newsletter. And I'd love to spend time to think about like, how do we even define local newsletter anymore? Because there's no clear definition. And so I went with Catskill Crew because I knew it was about the community. I knew that I didn't want to write about news. I knew I didn't want to do deep journalism pieces. And so I was like, I'm pretty good. I grew up like with the nickname as the mayor. Like I just like to talk to people. I really enjoy it. And so Catskill Crew was born. It was a terrible looking newsletter. It started by aggregating events. The only thing that has remained the same in almost 2.5 years is the font of which I wrote Catskill Crew in. And I think like that's the natural progression. So it was born out of an existential crisis. And now the job is to build something that I want to run till the day I die. There's been a couple acquisition offers. There's been investment opportunities. I'm like, nah, because if I sold this thing, I just want to start it again. If I took money, I'd be like, why? What does it unlock? And so staying true to that North Star is kind of everything and requires completely different tactics than any business I've started before. So I'm making decisions right now that are terrible for the business's bottom line, but are like, cool, lights me up. I'm staying true to that North Star.
I'm curious, a lot of the bloggers in my audience are used to covering entire, not even just countries, sometimes the whole world, or they have
Mm.
really broader niches like, say, solo travel or family travel. So, what makes the local model such a smart and sustainable business move right now? And how can someone decide how local they should get in terms of like focusing on their home neighborhood or a city or a region or state?
Okay, so of course, like the algorithms are changing. Trying to traverse like these tectonic shifts is essentially impossible. But what we know is like, yes, owned audience is more important. It doesn't matter, like the owned audience is the bottom of the funnel. Newsletter, SMS, like we should all be pushing in that direction because it de-risks your business. Like you'll sleep better at night. Your Instagram, your TikTok, your Facebook, like that's top of the funnel. Like that's not deep engagement. A like doesn't mean anything. When I like something, it means nothing for the creator. Like nothing, at least from my perspective of like when I tap like, it's like, I don't know, maybe I just want the algorithm to give me more of this type of stuff. Not very often am I going really deep into that creator's content. But the goal is to eventually bring them down that funnel. And so when you eventually, if you decide, to the bloggers out there, if you decide to start a local newsletter, there's a million different ways to do this, right? Like I work with 225 local newsletter operators. They are doing so many different strategies, tactics, approaches, and models. I go super deep in one market, just as deep as you can get. I push a little bit beyond the traditional boundaries of the Catskill Forest because I can travel to Hudson Valley, right? Like, so like that's fair game because it's based on how people travel and live in that geographic area. There's some folks I work with who just like they have AI systems that write all of their content. They have VAs creating everything. They are running dozens of local newsletters all over the world, actually. Part of that model is like kind of not going very deep in the content because you can't. You don't speak the language. You don't know that market. Like, yeah, even if you hire someone, that's just like, you're paying someone for an article, but there's not as much meat on the bones. You're really going like, hey, here's a restaurant review or new restaurant opened up or this just happened versus me. I'm like writing about what's happening in a black bear's den right now because it's like, it's that time of year, but like black bears are breeding. I'm writing about, what fly fishing flies to throw because it's the winter bite right now in the rivers. It's tougher. We're doing events all over the place like dinner clubs and bringing people together. Like Catskill Crew is a real community, and I think many folks are moving into this direction. Not to say there's anything wrong with the kind of breadth model, but the depth model is just more rewarding. It's just a fact for most people because you get to see firsthand the impact. You get to meet people who are reading your newsletter. You get to go deeper into your area and build true community and be the conduit. And, right now everyone's talking about, every marketer's like, it's the year of IRL. It's always been the year of IRL. Like it's always been about humans meeting humans. Like this doesn't address our monkey brain at all. We need to get together. And I think, we could spend hours and days on the loneliness pandemic, but like, what is a local newsletter? It's up to the operator themselves. What are you trying to do? What lights you up? Do you want to go deep journalism and write articles about, or even hire journalists to write about this stuff? Do you want to do food reviews? Do you want to talk about nature? And, you love to hike. You could start an entire local newsletter just on hiking, right? And that's for the experts, for the newbies. You could start bringing people out and start a hiking merch line. You could do meetups and we're going to go hike and then we're going to go to Westkill Brewery to get beers afterwards. Like the sky is the limit with what your content is. And, I think that's first and foremost what people should focus in on. Not like, oh, I'm going to start this thing. Sure. But now let's really kind of figure out, all right, your North Star. You're probably just trying to find something that's really fun and in time can monetize and you could, quit your job, whatever, bring in six figures, multiple six figures. But what do you want to write about? Like that's the most important thing. When I started Catskill Crew, there were dozens of local newsletters and now they're popping up all over the place. There's no barrier to entry. That's great. That's fine. But, it's really about carving out that niche. What lights you up? Where is your unique voice best served? And you might not know at first. All right, cool. Let perfection be the kind of the tailwind that will push you in the right direction over time. And you start figuring out what your voice is. Maybe you cover a bunch of different content in, your primary, secondary, tertiary content buckets. And then you're like, you know what? I don't give a crap about that or that. I'm going all in on this. Like outdoors and hiking. That's what I'm all about. And you'd be amazed at how much that resonates. And if you go deep, you're not worried so much about the subscriber base. You don't need a million subscribers. Like, we can come back to 1,000 true fans being a perfect model here. If you have 1,000 people who come to all your events, buy all your stuff, love your content, like, you got $1 million business right there. There's no doubt about it. And so, and I'd also note that within a newsletter, and I'll take a breath in a second here, but like within a newsletter, you only have three pillars. You have growth, you have content, and you have monetization. Everyone, when I started, I thought this was just a game of like build the biggest list possible. And I was like, really proud of the vanity metrics. And I was like, I hit 1,000 subscribers and 10,000 and 20 and 30 and 40. And it's like, it doesn't mean anything. Growth is so easy in local media because there's such an appetite. There's such a demand because traditional local media has failed us in so many ways. They have prioritized the advertiser over the subscriber. And as a result, people like me are able to start a business and grow very fast. So don't worry too much about growth. With the right systems, you put money in the Zuckerberg machine, your number will go up and to the right. Right. And then the trick is like, cool, you got a subscriber for 8 cents, 20 cents. Like those are the numbers we see. Even at 42,000 subscribers, I get subscribers for 25 cents still. And I'm not even crazy about Meta. Like there's people who are optimizing far beyond that. But just because you get them, all right, I get your newsletter. I'm like, this sucks. Unsubscribe button's right at the top now with the new Apple UI. Like, I'm happy about that. I want to see it and I want to bounce out if I don't like it or push you to VIP if I do like it. So your content has to be really strong. And then monetization, like you could easily do significant revenue just through creating good content and having a clear call to action for your readers to become, or rather your subscribers to become advertisers. That's how I've done it for pretty much 2 years. And now, I'm starting to branch out a little bit more. But if you have bad content, no one's going to stick around. If you have bad content, no one's going to want to advertise. So, create something really special and, don't be intimidated by like, I don't know where to start. Just start.
I love that. And you kind of touched on this a bit with what you just said, but I know when we were talking before, you talked about how Catskill Crew takes the community first versus advertiser first approach. Can you get a little bit deeper into that and explain more about how that helped you grow?
Yeah, I mean, again, like I still send this newsletter out as if it's just to me, right? Every single week. And I have such a high standard. I have not missed a single newsletter in 2.5 years. And that doesn't matter if my car's breaking down on a cross-country trip, someone died, my internet goes out. I find a way to get a newsletter out that I could be proud of. And if something's off the tiniest bit, I beat myself up pretty good. Because I and it's true. Like I'm kind of like, don't, perfectionism's the wrong thing. But it's like, if you have a high standard, I think it's a strength and not a weakness. And, I think that when you prioritize the subscriber, it changes the game, right? Why has traditional local media, or rather traditional media in general, failed? Because they had two ways to make money. They made money off you and I paying them for a subscription and advertisers. And when their content quality started going down, you and I stopped paying, and then they needed more advertisers, and then they had less eyeballs, and then they couldn't justify charging those advertisers as much. So then they had to send more cadences. So instead of sending 2 times a week, now I'm sending 7 times a week or 14 times a week, morning and night, newsletter. And you could see this in newspapers too, not just digital. It's kind of applicable across the board. And so when this happens, right now they're squeezing every dollar they can out of the remaining eyeballs. The content is not very great. If you do see a trad media company putting out good content, like, hats off to them. That's amazing. And so it was always about like, okay, well, if I want to run this till the day I die, like it has to be fun. If I was the subscriber, I'd want to be a participant, not just a blind consumer of that content. And so pretty early on, I started kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like Catskill Crew reads like part journal, part, it's kind of this weird blend that I put out, but it's extremely authentic to who I am. And then I started running polls like, hey, you guys tell me, what do you want? You want more of this? You want that? You want us to do that? You want us to throw an event? And then I wasn't guessing what people wanted. They became participants in the creation. They had a hand on the wheel. And also, like, it was nice. Like, I was able to go, hey, you guys want, I do a lot of products too. So Catskill Crew, like, it's a blended revenue model. And I would ask people, do you want me to launch this product? And they'd go, hell yeah. I'd go, great. Now I'm going to go make this thing. I have no idea how to make it. Right. And I finally get it. A pallet of Monopoly boards or something like that arrives. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? And, then I promote it and I'm like, well, you guys asked for it, right? Like, I'm not selling it to you. You asked for it. Now I'm delivering. And so I think when you could really build a community in a town square like that, and also like that's kind of a one-way street of contact. There's no forums here. There's no DMs. Like, I think we're all overwhelmed by another social platform, but the idea that I could click a poll and say yes or no, and like, cool, that's it, I'm done. I think it's a really nice kind of way to engage at this point in time where like there's 5,000 DMs I have to check all over the place. It's like, most of the time I don't check them. And I think a lot of other people are probably feeling the same way. And so the way that you could build kind of this one-way path of communication is really nice. So anyways, I guess what I'm trying to say is building a true community is a superpower right now. You have to, and when you prioritize the subscriber and the community, subscribers equal community, that means you're making decisions that might not be best for your business, but are best for the community as a whole. And so, you can't prioritize your business and prioritize community. They're different things.
I love that you were just talking about monetization because, of course, this is going to be a big question for people. So many creators are launching paid subscriptions or paid newsletters on Substack, let's say. But I know you keep your newsletter free and do what you call creative monetization. You were just touching on it a bit with the games and things. What are your current revenue streams and how do you recommend a local creator decide which monetization options are the right fit?
Yeah, it's basically impossible for me to recommend because there's too many different models, there's too many different operators, there's too many different skills. But in general, there's some thematic approaches. I would say, actually, I'd love to touch on the idea of like premium subscription. So I have never, ever, ever paid for a premium subscription for any newsletter. I've never paid for a Patreon. There's never been something that, not that I don't like the creators themselves, I want to support them. There's ways I can support them, but there's never enough for me to justify going premium. And I think like there's some operators out there that have a premium with nothing behind it. And I actually think that often performs better than like, hey, here's a premium, we'll give you a birthday shout out. I don't want a birthday shout out. I don't care. It almost feels less than. You are devaluing. And so first off, actually one tip is do not ask for tips. I changed my kind of call to action for support from tips to become a contributor, a crew contributor. I went from getting $1 to $5 to getting hundreds of dollars per newsletter I send out. There's nothing in return. All I do is send a thank you email. And, often these people are so awesome. I want to get on a call with them. And so I usually chat or meet up with the people because, this is my community and they're supporting what I'm building. And it's really special. Someone who's going to open up their wallet for me, like, come on, that's incredible. It doesn't matter if it's $5 or $1,000. That's their hard-earned money. And it might really be like, they might not have much. And that could be a significant spend for them. And so I deeply appreciate that. Then you have like premium subscriptions. Okay, well, if I went to premium model or I built a paywall, now all of my content is designed to get you over that paywall. Everything I feel like is a tease trying to bring you into some sort of trap and like, gotcha. Now, if you want to upgrade, you got to click here to read the rest of the article. Come on. I don't want to do that. I'm not bashing anyone that does, but I knew that would change my entire dynamic of what I was building. And everything would be through this lens of like, how do I get people to pay? How do I get them to pay? When in reality, what I'm trying to do is how do we get people to hang out together? How do I get us to care more about the land, the history, the nature of this place, get them more connected, and then inevitably more connected to one another? How do we have more fun together? How do we get weird? And so my version of a subscription was a snail mail letter that I launched Again, I was out in Montana. I go out every summer to go fish, and like I tell myself I'm not going to work. Nah. But if you love what you do, then it's hard not to work. And so, I kind of toned down the work and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to ask my subscribers if they want snail mail, like, my version of premium. And I launched it, and I poured my heart and soul into these. I'm sure I have them all around me, but there's like 6-page envelopes. Every season is different. It goes out at the beginning of every season. The first one had 3 stickers, an invite, 2 drink tickets to a private event. So everything drives back to IRL. There was, a note from me. There was cocktail recipes that paid homage to the Catskills. There were recipes that were seasonal. There was a mini almanac. The last one had postcards and, wildflower seeds and how to grow wildflowers in the area. And, I think that's fun. It's hard work. I made the decision to turn off subscription revenue on that, which was a lot of money because I was like, I don't know if I want to send snail mail. I can't half-ass anything. I always say I full-ass everything. And so like, I might not want to run this in 6 months or a year. I might love it and want to keep going, but I wanted the flexibility to go like, hey, I might do this, I might not. And so going from subscription revenue to seasonal, a la carte, one season you buy at a time, $25 a season, like that felt better to me. I'll probably make less money, but it felt like the right decision for mental health. And so, as you think about monetization and how to approach this, no matter what, you have to be creative. And so how creative monetization came about, and I didn't mean to coin some term, but I launched Catskill Crew. I talked to all my friends who are business owners, like, hey, Sam, Paul, Chuck, you guys want to advertise in Catskill Crew? And they're like, yeah, hell yeah, we love what you're doing. I was like, sick. How about $100 for the week? And they're like, great. And I had like 250 subscribers. And then I was like, all right, I got 500 subscribers. You guys want to like double that? And they're like, no, we'll stick with the $100 again. I was like, oh, okay. And then I got to like almost 1,000 subscribers, and people couldn't afford $250, the small businesses. It's like, crap. All right. So what's the point of me investing in growth if I've already hit the price ceiling? At least, side note, right, is that these are small businesses. So these are kind of like the tier 3. Then you have the tier 2, which are high LTV businesses. And then you have the tier 1 national brands. But the tier 3, that's who I could only work with 1,000 subscribers. So it's like, all right, I need to think creatively about how to monetize this thing. And I came at it from, just like the artistic and founder background. And I was like, all right, how about we throw an event? Brought it to my community, and I was like, you guys want to, like, we're an online community, how about we take this thing into the real world? And they're like, hell yes. And I was like, okay. Went to my buddy who owns a restaurant and a hotel. I was like, hey, you want to throw an event? He's like, absolutely. I was like, how about $1,000? I'll promote it for 3 weeks. He's like, absolutely not. I was like, I sipped my beer. I was like, how am I going to do this? I was like, okay, how about this? I'll promote it for 3 weeks. I'll sell the tickets. I keep all the revenue from the tickets. You keep all the food and beverage revenue. So we did it. It was 40 tickets, $25 a pop. You got a welcome drink. We had some food and a DJ, and then there was a discounted hotel room for $99. I did it on a Tuesday because I wanted it to be more locals vibe. All these business owners came out. The event sold out. I sold shirts and discount cards, and we can get into all that. I've monetized so many ways. I'll probably forget a few. But it was a banger. They made $7,000 over the bar. 12 people got hotel rooms that night. They all lived right down the road. But we had so much fun. The business owners were like, can you do this for us? And I was like, I think I can. And so events have become a massive revenue driver. I think I've probably closed, I don't know, $15,000 this month on just throwing events. I have a dinner party tonight, and it's nice. Like, don't tell anyone. I do all these for free because it's just fun, but you're promoting those businesses. So it's only fair that you charge those businesses. I always structure win-win-win pricing where the subscribers can afford it, I'm making money, and the business is thrilled. Like, I don't want anyone being like, man, I don't know if that was a right decision. I don't want any price regret or anything like that. And so, events became a thing. Then I started these discount cards. I always wanted to take Catskill Crew and go from inbox to other places. I didn't want it to just be a newsletter. So I was like, all right, how do we go inbox to wallet? So I partnered with 10 businesses. They gave 10, 15% discounts. I made 500 of these discount cards. Again, this was approved by my community. I made it really nice. It looked super premium, paid a friend who's a designer to like create some digital assets, and we promoted this thing, and I made a couple grand. I still had about 1,000 subscribers. I was like, holy crap, like really interesting. I'm having fun now. And the businesses started promoting it, which was the actual intent, was how do I ride the coattails of larger businesses in my market? And I just so happen to make money at the same time. I've done art, I've done hats that have sold out, I've done Monopoly boards, I've done puzzles. I just launched a new board game, which, side note, which is really funny, is like, the puzzles. I was out in Taos, New Mexico. I was at an Airbnb drinking some wine. They had a Taosopoly board, and I was like, hell yeah! Open it up, and it's like all businesses. I was like, ugh, I don't want to own the Taos laundromat. Hey, buddy, little cat right there. Hey, pal. My dog's not here right now, so we're safe.
He's been creeping around the laptop. I'm slowly moving like liquids out of the way.
I respect that. Yeah, no, my dog Book is at the dog sitter right now, so I'm lucky. But the Monopoly board was terrible, and I was like, I could do this better, focusing on nature and history. And so I launched these. They sold out in, I think it was like less than 7 days. Right, it was a beast of a project to take on because I didn't want to half-ass it. So I ordered 1,000 more. The pallet arrived, and I was like, all right, the last one I sold 500 in 7 days. Like, this is going to be even crazier. Like, buckle in and buckle up. I sold like 3, and I was like, and I tripled my subscribers in that period of time. I was like, what the hell? I didn't have a second bedroom. My house is covered in Monopoly boards. I'm like, what am I going to do? What happened there? And part of it was those subscribers didn't see the journey of the creation. They weren't there when I was like conceptualizing what this is and saying, all right, guys, you wanted them, go make it. So I was like, all right, I gotta creatively get rid of all these. So I called every business I did business with. I was like, how do you guys feel about wholesale pricing? And they're like, yeah, let's do it. We'll move them. So now I have an entire wholesale business moving these board games all around the Catskills. Hotels, little markets carry them, breweries have them. And it's wonderful because they make money, I make money, customers discover Catskill Crew in a very different way. Obviously, you have traditional ads. You can get extremely creative with how you structure those ad packages as well. But think outside the box. Anything is possible here. Lean into what you do. Like, if it was a hiking newsletter, like, better believe I would have hiking events. I would have happy hours. I would have some sort of, or multiple brands involved in, like, hey, this is our exclusive, boot of choice, and out here everyone has Blundstones, but you probably need some like Solomon's or something like that for hiking. There's definitely ads you could bring into it. There's definitely a dozen different ways. Like, you could build a book that's a hiking guide and sell that. And I think people should, everyone here should really lean into personality. Like, don't keep it boring, be vulnerable, have fun with it. I am so sick of just generic, bland, gray content. I think the operators who are building the deepest communities so successful in a community building level are personality driven. And so, be patient with monetization. Pricing structures are always changing. I'm work with all these newsletter operators, and we're always like, how would we approach this pricing structure? Right. I'm talking to a national liquor brand right after this. And like, we've had a couple conversations now, and it's like, they're purposely vague about the pricing. And so I have to go out on a whim, and it's like, you better believe I'm going to aim high, but justifiably high, that I could back those numbers, versus go low and leave money on the table. Like, again, it's always about win-win-wins. And when you kind of triangulate, how does your business win / how do you win as the operator? How are you having fun? This is so important because you're going to pour your heart and soul into it. How do the subscribers win, and how do your businesses win who are, partners? Always try to push for that win-win-win.
All right, taking a quick break from the episode to tell you how you can get paid opportunities sent straight to your inbox. Every Monday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern, I send out my VIP Opportunities for Travel Creators newsletter. Each edition is hand-curated to include 5 high-value leads, from brand to UGC partnerships to press trips to paid writing assignments and beyond. For example, a recent issue featured a wildlife-focused press trip to Sweden, a call for pitches from a top travel magazine, and a high-paying affiliate program that was also looking to sponsor some Instagram reels. Now, I want you to see the value for yourself, so I'm offering 1 issue of your choice for free. You can join today and get 5 free leads by clicking the link in the video description or scanning the QR code on your screen. Think of this as a weekly shortcut that helps you stay consistent with your pitches and monetization without the hours of manual research. All right, now back to the video. I know you talked about this a bit in the beginning, but I know this will be a question people have. how are you specifically using the newsletter to promote all these different revenue streams? And then are you doing any of the more traditional marketing tactics like sales funnels, for example?
So I think for starters, the newsletter is everything for me right now. I announced the products like today's Thursday, Tuesday. I announced the new memory game that I just launched. Like I built hype up to that leading up to it. And then it was like, yesterday and today is going to be crazy packing. Like I own the record for most packages out of my local USPS, and like the local USPSs are fighting for my business. And I love it. I scatter the packages all over, and but I think you don't need some crazy sales funnel because you're already at the bottom of the funnel with the newsletter. Now there's ways to hammer it home. There's ways to stay front and center. If you have a welcome sequence, like, hey, thank you so much for joining my newsletter. This is what you could expect. P.S. We have this thing, and this thing. And so you can pursue negative customer acquisition costs. So if it costs me 25 cents to get you into Catskill Crew, and I send you a welcome email and it's like, hey, P.S., we have all these board games and we have this merch and we have this limited edition hat drop. There's only 100. The last time I did those, they sold out in 7 hours. You could build ways to start monetizing. And like, look, I think like there's a cringe approach of just like monetization, blind pursuit of max profit. Like that doesn't work for my business here. I get it for a startup venture, like for any other venture I've built, but for Catskill Crew, it's like, nah, how do I have fun? And yes, make money in the process. And so, there's deep respect. I'm not going to hammer a user, subscriber 20 times on like buying something. I'm going to respectfully be like, hey, you want this thing? All right, 2 weeks later, I'm going to turn that promotion off. And then, I might revisit it if I have, some inventory left over and be like, hey, last call, if anyone wants it. I'll find ways to get rid of it if it doesn't move. But most of the times things sell out. So yeah, I think it's about just like being respectful and patient with folks. And then from like the traditional side, like, look, I hate social media. My personal account has 0 posts. I haven't had a Facebook account in 14 years. I just kind of started posting on LinkedIn like a year ago. However, I needed to post on Instagram for Catskill Crew. And it's kind of critical because it is your storefront. So if you want to work with businesses, if you want to work with, or even just get subscribers, they're going to kind of just check that vanity metric real quick and be like, are you legit? I think once you get 10,000 followers, you're good. You could like kind of chill on it. But there's some folks in the newsletter club, which is the community I run. There are folks who are hardcore on social, like they're gaining thousands of subscribers, or rather followers a day. They leverage ManyChat, I think is the name of the software. So they drive those conversions higher. I run this whole community and I'm still not doing that, right? Because like, I'd rather hire someone to manage all of that because like, I could care less. I understand it's kind of a critical component, but it's not where my strengths are. My strengths are, the execution of the bigger strategy, mission, thinking creatively. The tactics on like those deeper levels is like, you could pay someone to do that. Example, I hired a bookkeeper before I ever made a penny because I don't enjoy spreadsheets. And, Megan was like, why are you paying me? You're not making anything. I was like, peace of mind, just file zeros on my tax return. Like, I can't do it. And then, obviously she's very busy now with me, but like, it's peace of mind. And so like, if you do want to build a business that you want to run till the day you die, like double down on your strengths, outsource those weaknesses. I have a virtual assistant, Angel, who's an absolute angel. She like does a lot of the social media, a lot of the video editing. Like she does a lot of the event aggregation. So bring in teams, bring in support. You don't have to spend an arm and a leg. You don't have to do it on day one, push through the growing pains and then see what keeps screaming at you and be like, all right, time to bring in some support here. But I guess full circle back to the Instagram side of it. Like, yeah, you need a social side. You need a social component, but you don't need to, kill yourself running that and, the constant treadmill of content. Let the newsletter kind of be where your biggest growth is. And I think if you create amazing things, so I turned my ads off, meta ads off in November, just as like a peace of mind thing. I was just like, hey, I grew tens of thousands of subscribers this year. I'm going to turn them off for a little bit. Now we're about to approach March and I still haven't turned them on yet. I am still at the same point. So I lose a bunch of subscribers every send, and I gain a bunch of subscribers every time. So I'm like, I've hit stasis with my subscribers. There's no right formula here either for anyone. And I think that's what makes this the most fun. This is your recipe. Screw around, find out, move different ingredients in different ways, and be like, nothing is crystallized. Like, I could keep going down this path and then be like, I don't really want to do that anymore. I want to focus in on this, or I don't want to monetize that way, or I don't want to. The choice is yours. And I think it's so freeing and fun. And I think so many people are just building ventures based on financial output and gain. And yet, I think you can make more if you build something really special that lights you up. So I kind of challenge everyone to really hone in on what's the North Star, what lights them up. And then, of course, from a market standpoint, is it your town? Is it your city? Is it your region? Think about how people travel in those areas. So in the Catskills, it's a big forest and all the towns are around the forest. And then you have the Hudson Valley and, it's far more densely populated there. Catskills is where I live, but we travel into Hudson Valley. So you better believe I'm going to go into Hudson Valley. Tonight we have a dinner club in New Paltz. That's Hudson Valley, right? And it's like, cool. It's fair game. We all travel there. So, think about your geography, but think about it more as like, does it have a name like the Catskills or Hudson Valley? How do people travel around there? If you're in a city, maybe you don't want to target the city. Maybe you want to target the suburbs. So instead of calling it whatever, if you don't want to target Austin, you want to target the suburbs of Austin, which in many ways is probably an even bigger opportunity. Then like, how would you name that? What is your kind of branding around that, and get creative?
You talked a little bit ago about those 1,000 raving fans. I think you worded it something like that. At this point, you've scaled to over 40,000. So I want to backtrack a little bit. Everyone starts at zero. What strategies helped you get those first few hundred people, let's say, on your list? And in those very early days, how did you ensure your effort was worthwhile when maybe only, a handful or a few dozen people were seeing that newsletter content?
Yeah, well, part of it, like, you're hitting send and your mom's the only subscriber, and you're like, whatever, it's cool. I'm finding my voice, I'm figuring it out. And it's like, yo, mom, send it to some friends. And you're sending it to some friends, but you still want it to look good. You still want it to appear good. Don't just because no one's, in the crowd doesn't mean you shouldn't put on your best performance possible. And look, it's your first time hitting send. My newsletter looked like crap. It was just a long list of events. And guess what? I sent it to some friends. And I'm like, this is awesome. I didn't know that was going on. And it started with just event aggregation. And naturally, you cannot build, a true business on just aggregating events on a local level, in my opinion. So your hand will be forced. And I think that's a good thing. And so when you kind of just sitting there staring at a big old fat zero in terms of your subscribers, it's like, all right, how do I move the needle? I didn't turn ads on until August of 2024. So I started October 2023. No, I would say I was sitting there on Christmas Day and it was a Tuesday. So I think, it was probably Christmas was probably Tuesday in 2023, because I have this memory of like sitting in this hotel room. My sister had stage 4 cancer, right? Like, we're in Boston. She was given 90 days to live. And I was like, all right, so we're going to spend the last Christmas with my sister. And I was sitting in the hotel room still hammering out this newsletter. My sister's still around. She's cancer free too. And so but I was still just like, I want to hit send. I want to get this thing out. And so I mean it when I'm like, I do not miss a send. If I miss a send, something has gone terribly wrong. And I was sending out to maybe like 700 subscribers then. So I grew like 700 subscribers, over that period of time. And then I started realizing like, wait, crap, there's so many easier ways to grow this. Why am I grinding it out? And so I started kind of building out these templates on Instagram of just like, hey, Tuesday, this is what's happening. And I would tag a business. I would write a couple words about the event. You want to see what else is happening in the Catskills? Subscribe here. So I started running this tactic and I exploded in growth, like over 1,000 subscribers in probably 10 days. I mean, like, they looked okay. It wasn't anything crazy. I wasn't going mental tagging every business. And if a business didn't reshare it after like 2 or 3 times tagging their events, I just wouldn't tag them anymore. Right. Like, nothing against them. It's just like, it's not achieving the goal of like, some viral component of, again, riding the coattails of these other businesses. And so that was a very big kind of realization of how to grow organically. then, and I wasn't out there making reels. I'm not, crazy on that. It's just, yeah, maybe 2026. Um, and, then it was the discount cards, and then it was the events and throwing the events, and the other businesses were promoted. So it's cross promotion. In August of 2023, I launched the newsletter club, and Philip, who runs a newsletter called Orlando Signal, he is such an unbelievably brilliant operator. We actually just had an event in the city, and he came up and, braved the blizzard to come hang out. And he's just like, his brain works in such a different way. And I had 4,500 subscribers or something like that in August of 2024. And my goal was 7,000, really, because 2024 was the first real year. And I was like, I want 7,000 subscribers. He's like, just turn meta ads on. And I was like, I'm intimidated, man. Like, straight up, like, that dashboard is intimidating. And he walked me through how to do it. It's now one of our master classes in there, and pretty much every operator is doing it. And I closed out the year with probably 10,000 subscribers. From end of August, call it September, to end of December, I added like 6,000 plus subscribers. And I was like, I'll be damned. This is incredible. All of 2025 was just like me putting more money into the Zuck machine, and it just kept going up and to the right. And I was like, all right, growth is nothing. Growth is the easiest thing. I see it across every operator. There's a guy named Ed Henko who runs a Lancaster Loop. He came out to New York City actually too. And he's on his 14th edition, and he has over 8,000 subscribers now. He sent 14 newsletters. He's probably at 9,000 subscribers right now. And if this comes out next week, he's probably at 1 billion subscribers right now. And so like, he's moving at such a fast pace. It's not rocket science. It's just using it's not some secret sauce. It's just using the right setup and putting money into the Zuckerberg machine. And then ideally starting to build some negative CAC where it's like, all right, it costs you 25 cents, but you just made 10, 20, $50 off that subscriber. Now you have a real system that's purring. But growth is very easy. You could really build a very sustainable, strong business organically. However, I advise everyone, don't make the mistake I made. Put whatever you can that, money wise, that won't keep you up at night into Meta. It is one of the most effective ways. You could use Reddit. Local channels are great for this, but you're at the whim of the mod. That mod might like what you're doing. They might not. I posted on Reddit every once in a while, and then, I just didn't want to I just didn't enjoy it. So I probably lost out on thousands of subscribers not posting there. But it is cool going on Reddit and people are like, Catskill Crew is awesome, or what's going on this weekend? Check out Catskill Crew. And so it's cool to see your brand start, kind of like weaving its way into kind of the local dialogue. So don't be worried about growth. If you make organic content that looks good, businesses will share it. And then, start putting some money into Meta, and you'll be good.
When you were saying Reddit, do you mean organic Reddit interaction, like just going in, or do you mean Reddit ads? And then I'm curious, on top of that, do you do any like local Facebook group advertising?
No, I'm probably like one of the weird people in the newsletter club where like there's a lot of operators who, and that's the cool part. You see all these tactics everyone's doing, but a lot of it is about like, hey, does that work for me or doesn't it? And so you could see that tactic working, and it's like, I'm good. So there's people who are crushing it, posting on like, I think it's the Ring's Neighbors app. Like they are going viral in there. I don't know what they're doing. I don't have Ring. I have like the Google camera. But like, so there's entire markets who are like operators. I think Tanya and Jill are really good at this, who are like growing in the Neighbors app. When I say Reddit, I specifically mean going into like the subreddits for your communities, for your geographies that you're targeting, and finding ways to create content or interact. So if someone says, hey, like, is anything going on this week? You're able to go like, hey, yeah, actually I have a free list over here. Now the mod might be like, don't take traffic away, and they'll, destroy that comment. Fine. That's fair game. The way I did it was on the few times I did it, it was extremely well received. And, maybe in another few months, I'll get back on Reddit and start posting this. But like, I would just go in and just be like, hey everyone, like Michael here, bunch of things going on this weekend in the Catskills. And I wouldn't do the whole week. I'd just do like kind of Friday, Saturday, Sunday, like bunch of stuff here. Check it out. If I missed anything, let me know. If you want me to cover anything in Catskill Crew newsletter, like a free newsletter that goes out every Tuesday, let me know. I'll do my best to cover it. And if you got anything else that's happening this week, like comment it down below. And so it's like value, value, value. Then very subtly, like, hey, if you want this, delivered to your inbox totally free, like you could click here and please comment below and let us know. And so I think the mod was kind of like, yeah, he's not trying to take people away here, at trying to add value and kind of stimulate more conversation. But in terms of growth, like nothing beats meta. But just make sure your content itself is good. Otherwise, you're just burning quarters in your pocket every time you bring someone on. It's like, this sucks.
I'd love to talk a bit more about content. Again, this audience has so many bloggers or like creators on social. And I know you have a blog. I think you call it something different, but you have like that regularly updated content on your website and Instagram. And then I think you mentioned you recently launched a YouTube. So I'm curious, how are these different channels working together?
Yeah. So to be clear, my YouTube channel is just for the newsletter club. That's me nerding out about local newsletters. But funny enough, we just did a master class yesterday on a guy named Corey down in, oh God, he'll kick my ass if I forget where he's from. Not San Antonio. Texas. We could say Texas. I know that confidently. And he does a lot. He's done I even have the notes here. He's done 1.7 million views. He's had $20,000 worth of inbound partnerships through this. And so he has a YouTube channel, which ties in with his local newsletter and newsletters, because he has one that is town focused and one that is state focused. And so when you think about all these different components, so you think about hey, I have my newsletter, I have my website, I have my Instagram, I have my YouTube, I have my print media component, doesn't make a difference. Your goal here, maybe even SMS, is to not cannibalize one. They need to support one another. They need to funnel into one another. So your YouTube channel should be driving people to sign up for your newsletter. Your newsletter should be pointing people to sign up for your SMS and YouTube. So you need these different ways to really kind of facilitate. And then you need to offer different things for each one of those. So, if you do YouTube, well, you should be chopping that YouTube down and that video, that long form video, and making shorts and putting it into your Instagram and teasing it in your newsletter. And then, sending out an SMS link that has that. Ideally, you're not sending SMS or something like that because it's too expensive. You really need to understand the sending economics there. But I think SMS is going to be will become mission critical for so many operators, but it just requires different tactics. So when you start thinking about all these different platforms and ways to engage audiences, think about how they support one another. Because look, if your newsletter is the same stuff that's happening on your website and vice versa, why am I ever going to go to your website, or why am I ever going to go to your newsletter? You're going to lose me on one. Tease the content that's happening on the website, but also add other stuff that I can only get in the newsletter. And don't overthink it. You don't have to be everywhere. I think we can easily become so overwhelmed by, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do this. I feel it every single day. And then I just go like, crap, like I'm not getting around to that. Like I don't need to do that. And, I really believe in a notebook where you have your long-term plans, or it's like, okay, there's some stuff that's been on there for 6-12 months. Fine. I've done a ton of other things in the process. Like let that thing collect dust in the dark pages of that notebook, because there's too much. We can't do it all. And yes, you can hire out, and yes, but like, I think it's diminishing returns to some degree, as like one individual keeps trying to pursue everything. It's like you wear yourself thin, you're going to tire yourself out. Protect that energy, protect that creativity, protect that passion. And it's easy to lose track of that right now. Like, especially, your audience is all creatives, right? And they're traveling all over, and it's always, what other content can I create? And it's like, okay, that is an entire world of your brain turning and thinking of the content and the voice, and what can I do? And how do I monetize this thing? It's 100 balls you're juggling. Okay. Now I need to work on my meta title, my meta description. I need to edit that video. I need to upgrade my ads and make sure those are running. And what about all these 500 other pieces of software I pay, 5 cents to $500 a month for? It's just like, give yourself a moment, take a breath. We all should. And just like, what's going to move the needle? What lights you up? You could always pay a VA or someone else to come in and help you on this mission, but focus on what moves the needle and lights you up.
That will definitely resonate with a lot of people because I think that's the number one thing for like content creators in general is like all the different platforms and things you feel like you have to do everything. So that's such a great tip of like honing in on what actually is going to matter.
Justin Welsh, the guru, the internet guru, Justin Welsh, he is a good friend of mine. We actually met through Catskill Crew. We ran into each other at an event. And what I love about his approach to like all these different platforms, right? He is an absolute beast, what he's done and what he's created. And he's brilliant. But I love what he does, even where he's at today. His socials are just screenshots. He posts on LinkedIn and then he just posts the screenshot of that on like Instagram, on X, on all these things. And it's like, good. Why do you need to rewrite it and post it there? It's like, yep, post it here, screenshot it, share it everywhere. Like we could lose our mind chasing like these diminishing returns of like slight improvements. It's exhausting. And I think anyone who creates anything in this day and age, hell, even if you don't create anything, it's just life, right? And that's why I'm saying, like, I probably have hundreds of DMs and there's probably tens of thousands of dollars worth of like ad business opportunities sitting in my Instagram. I'll get to it when I get to it. February, good example, was like, I've just been like, I'm trying to hire a head of sales and partnerships and kind of like support operations. And I'm like, January started slow. And I was like, I'm cool with this right now. Like, I am strategizing, but like December was a banger. And I'm like, there's a part of the monkey brain that's like, is it all over? Am I done? I went into my inbox kind of start of February and I was like, all right, time to like close a couple deals. And like, I'm hopefully on track to close out February at like, if I can close a deal today, like $40,000, right? Right now it's sitting at 32,000. And I've been able to do this through not answering every single DM, saying no to a ton of advertisers that wouldn't get on a call with me, right? Like I have a job. I think it depends, right? There's a couple different models. Mine is deep, trust-based, authentic, North Star, run until the day you die. There's other people I work with I call them ad slingers. It's just send as many newsletters as possible. Who cares if it's good content? Plug as many ads as possible. I don't even say that in a bad way. It's just their business. I deeply respect them. They're brilliant operators. For me, I say no to every advertiser that I don't know, right? Like if you're not going to get on a call with me and you're just asking rate card, like I have a duty to respect or protect my subscribers. And I think that pays dividends because your halo effect gets bigger and bigger and bigger where, everyone's just associating you with great brands. It doesn't mean they're bigger brands. It just means they're good brands. It means they're good people and good humans. And I could stand behind that message and be like, yo, you guys need your windows clean. Go call my buddy Conrad over at Pink's Windows. Like they are the best. And let me tell you why they're so good. Here's hundreds of 5-star reviews. If they're a crappy business, I have to lie and be like, if you need your windows clean, it's just like, I don't want to have to do that. And so I say no all the time to advertisers who are like, send me a rate card. All right, well, let's hop on a call. Here's my calendar. Yeah, we don't have time. Send me a rate card. Yeah, no, like here's my calendar. Talk to you when I talk to you. And I could confidently do that because it's like, who wants to work with crappy people? Who wants to promote, and I'm not saying they're crappy. They might just be straight up busy. But if you want to work with me, make the time to, build a human connection. This is not a platform for every advertiser who has a dollar to kind of dangle.
Yeah. And building on that a little bit, you talked about all the different like win-win collaboration type things you do. I know a big thing for you is giving back to the community. Do you have any tips for other creators who are very like, yes, this is something that's going to be important to me for my local newsletter is that giving back aspect?
Oh, hell yeah. Give back. Give back. Like it's just the best. It lights you up more. Again, like I think if I was in pursuit of max profit here, I would have already given up. I would have already shut down. I would have already burned out. If you are staying true to and I know I'm like beating the horse here, this North Star thing, but like, I really do believe it, and I could actually like share kind of how I visualize it. I have a North Star. I have 2 lighthouses. That North Star, build a company I run till the day I die. How do I do that? I build based on one lighthouse is fun and the other lighthouse is community. If it is not between fun and community, then I have lost track to that North Star. Community is critical. And so not only am I bringing people together, not only am I supporting local business and hearing firsthand that me promoting a business, like they had a record breaking day. People have mouths to feed, people have families to support, people have dreams and travel that they want to achieve. It's like, cool. If I could just like take a couple words in this newsletter and like promote a business that might deeply need it, and like they have a banger of a day, it's like nice. Like that lights me up. I'm not one of those people that's like really good at celebrating victories or anything. It's kind of like, yeah, nice, cool, next. And so like, but I can find some like joy in that. And so, in terms of like how to support community, again, I think it comes down to like, for me, it's bringing people together. It's supporting small business. It's supporting initiatives that protect the land and the nature. Like I don't charge a nonprofit to go in there. Like for a little while there, I was featuring a different nonprofit every week. There's a Raven's Beard, which is, like a bird sanctuary here. They heal, rehabilitate birds. And it's like, I don't think they had any money to advertise, I think. Like, and I always do mates rates, right? I'm always like, $500. And they're like, yeah, we don't have 500. I'm like, oh, what do you got? And they're like, 200. I'm like, cool. I'll give you 2 weeks for 200 instead of 500 for 1 week. Like, you're in a tough spot. I like you. I love what your mission is. And if I have a spot in the future, I'll give it to you guys on the house. Like, I love what you're doing. And so like Raven's Beard, they were doing a gala. They had all these fundraising efforts. Like, great. I'll just hook you guys up. You're awesome. I love what you're doing. We did a fundraiser, a farm friends fundraiser. There's a Woodstock Farm Sanctuary here. They're unbelievable people, rescuing farm animals from really hard times. It's like a couple $100 to sponsor an animal for a year. And I was like, hey, you guys want to sponsor some farm animals? And everyone's like, yes. So our goal was, I think like $1,100 or something like that. We raised almost $1,700. We have sponsored Penny the cow. We have sponsored Tuesday the goat, Leroy the pig, Peppermint the chicken, Tiny the turkey, River the sheep. And it's like, hell yes, that is awesome. And not only that, but now we're going to do a volunteer day on the farm. So we're going to bring all these people together, have an awesome time. You better believe I'm going to bring in like a brewery as a partner or something like that. So not only can we make an impact, not just with our dollars, but with our, getting dirt under our fingernails. And then we all get to have a cold beer, ideally when it's a little warmer out, and like get to know each other and have some fun. It's like community is everything, and supporting that community in any initiatives you can. I do a lot to protect the rivers here, and because I fly fish, but like, it's part of the responsibility. And I think it keeps it, again, fun and community. It keeps me on track.
Yeah, that's really inspiring because it's the people aspect, but also the environmental aspect. It's kind of like the big picture of the place. I have just kind of one more question as we're winding down. You're balancing a lot. Obviously, you've got the events and products and the content creation and more. What does your actual workflow look like so that you get everything done without burning out?
Screaming, crying, cold showers, curled up in a ball. No, it is stressful, but in the most fun way. Again, like I live and breathe this business. This is one of many businesses I do. Like right now we're trying to rebuild a town in the Catskills. I didn't even get to that. Like there's a bunch of us investing into some real estate, and we want to back local entrepreneurs and rebuild this area into something, a true community. So not only is it a architect of the digital community and bringing people in the real world, but like, how do you actually architect community in terms of like physical spaces? There's a lot. And I think that's why it comes down to like constant reassessment of like, hey, what the hell is working for me here and what is not? And it might change season to season. So like after I kind of like push hard, shipping out hundreds and hundreds of products or thousands of products, from wholesale to direct to consumer, like, all right, I'm going to chill on products for a while. Now I'm just going to send a couple emails. Cool. Closed a bunch of deals. Nice. And you're like coming to those brands creatively, thinking how to work together. And so it's a different muscle to flex. So I almost think of it as like, I don't know, a little bit of training. Like, hey, I'm going to push really hard on the IRL stuff. Now I'm going to tone it back. Now I'm going to push really hard on the ad stuff. Bring in people. I'm finally bringing on this head of sales and partnerships because it was just something like, hey, I could do this all on my own, but man, wouldn't it be really nice to like take a couple days off, and not days off because that's not actually what I'm after. I love to work, But like, I want to be able to like hit the river and fly fish for 12 hours instead of 6 hours because spring's around the corner and be like, you know what? Things are still getting done. And that creative energy and these folks that ideally, like in the future, I want a team sitting around a table and I want to rebuild what the future of media is and how we define this thing. But like, it requires a balance. It requires approach. You could solopreneur the heck out of this thing. And there are tons. I would say the majority of the operators in the newsletter club are independent operators. And so they're leaning into all the different skills that they have, and they're either outsourcing the rest with VAs or assistants or, part-time hires. But be patient, and you don't have to do it all at once. And it's hard to. Don't follow my lead. Like last night I got home from dinner and I opened the laptop and I was firing out, proposals till 11 p.m., but I was having fun. I wasn't like stressed. Like, yeah, I was, like your heart's pounded because you're sending out proposals for $10,000, $20,000, but like, it's fun. You're like, man, that would be really cool if this comes to fruition, not for the money, but like, that is cool if that happens. And I know the impact that this has on the community. Great example is like, and I think this keeps people on track too, is like building for a market, and live is like, it keeps you, there is a buffer zone from burning out. You might like fizzle and fry a little bit, but you turn your phone off, you walk away, you go for a hike, and then you're like, all right, I'm back. Let's do this thing versus like, I need to walk away for months. We were at a restaurant. I was in my waders fly fishing and a buddy, Corey, spots me in the river. He's like, let's go get a drink. It's too cold to fish. I was like, wonderful. So you probably know it. Ralph's Urban Cowboy, right at the foothill of Slide Mountain. So we went up there. I'm in my waders still. And this girl comes over and she orders an Alaskan. That was the name of the cocktail. And Corey and I look at each other like, Alaskan. And I'm like, hey, how do you know about that drink Alaskan? She goes, oh, I subscribe to this newsletter, Catskill Crew, and they have this quarterly, like a physical piece of mail that goes out. And the recipe in there was for winter was the Alaskan. I go, yeah. Like, so just wanted to make sure. Corey here wrote that article about the Alaskan, and I run Catskill Crew. She brings her partner over. We ended up chatting for an hour and a half. And this happens all day, every day. And so like, it fires me up, and you're hearing what lights them up about reading this. Hey, I don't even check my email, but I make sure every Tuesday I get your newsletter. And it's like, that's a responsibility that keeps me pushing harder. Right. So it's like a fire under my ass, but at the same time, it's like, it's very supportive. Like you have the backing of the community. So let the growing pains be growing pains, adjust course, and amazing things will happen if you build toward that real goal of yours versus just, I'm going to start a local newsletter and make $100,000. Like, let's dig in. And I always push everyone when they join the club, like, what is your goal? Don't worry about other models. I send once a week. There's people in the club that send more than 7 times a week. We are totally different animals and operators in there. We need to make sure that we're understanding how do we build something that lights you up and is good for your community and your voice. Otherwise, you will burn out.
Thank you so much. This was so helpful. It was like a full-on, like step-by-step course in a podcast. Before we sign off, can you just let everyone know where they can find you?
So LinkedIn, Michael J. Kauffman, X, Mikey Pesto. I'm posting the same things on both places. You don't have to follow me on both there. YouTube, I'm trying to do some more stuff though. I think that's Mikey Pesto. And then there's the newsletter club, the newsletter.club. We are just doing some amazing stuff and redefining or trying to figure out how you even define what local media is today. And it's a really special place.
And I will have all of that, as well as the Catskill Crew newsletter itself, linked in the show notes or the video description on YouTube.
And everyone is welcome to respond to that email from Catskill Crew. It comes right to me. I respond to every single one. I have hours locked off every single week just to respond to emails. I've gotten on calls with 90-year-olds whose vision is bad just to hear their fishing story because they can't type it. It's a special place. And I really hope anyone listening here, I could confidently say this has been the most rewarding business I've ever built in my entire life. And I really do hope you build something that feels the same way or fills you with the same energy it does for me.
All right. Now, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you feel inspired and empowered to launch and scale a local newsletter. Don't forget to grab access to the free Travel Blogger resource library linked in the video description or via the QR code on your screen. There are a ton of resources in there on growing your community and increasing your blogging profits, including a launch and scale a local newsletter cheat sheet based on today's video. In the video description and via a new QR code on your screen, You can also sign up for my VIP Opportunities for Travel Creators newsletter. Once on the list, you'll get 5 high-value leads that can help you monetize faster and easier, sent to your inbox every Monday at 8 a.m. Eastern. And of course, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss future videos sharing these strategies for bloggers who want to turn their blogs into profitable full-time businesses. Happy blogging!